The Galactic Council had been fighting the swarm for 300 years. 3 centuries of constant war. 3 centuries of death. Every civilized species in the galaxy sent their best ships and bravest soldiers to hold the line at the outer rim. The swarm didn't negotiate. They didn't communicate. They just consumed everything in their path like locusts made of metal and hate. When humanity sent their petition to join the war effort, the council chamber erupted in disbelief. Some delegates laughed. Others were insulted. Humans were barely toddlers in galactic terms. They'd only been traveling between stars for 200 years. Their technology was outdated. Their weapons were crude. Their ships looked like flying scrap metal held together with optimism and welding. The council elder, a being that had lived for 6 centuries, looked at the human petition with something between pity and contempt. Humans wanted to help? These newcomers who still fought wars among themselves? These primitives who hadn't even unified their own planet until 50 years ago? But the council was desperate. The swarm had broken through the defenses at the Krell sector. Thousands of worlds burned. Billions died. The council needed bodies. They needed ships. They needed anything that could point a gun at the enemy and pull the trigger. So they accepted humanity's offer. But they weren't stupid about it. They assigned the human fleet to Sector 7, a backwater region on the edge of the war zone. It was the quietest sector in the entire conflict. Nothing ever happened there. The swarm rarely ventured that far out. It was perfect for keeping these enthusiastic but incompetent humans out of the way. Commander Rachel Brooks stood on the bridge of the UNSC Indomitable and watched her fleet arrive at their assigned position. 47 ships. That's all humanity could spare. Retrofitted cargo haulers with missile pods welded to their hulls. Colony defense ships pulled from peaceful settlements. A few actual military vessels that looked tiny compared to the massive warships of other species. Rachel was 42 years old. She'd fought in the Mars Rebellion and the Titan Wars. She'd seen combat. But this was different. This was humanity's debut on the galactic stage, and everyone expected them to fail. The alien observers didn't even try to hide their contempt. She could hear them on the open channels. The insectoid delegation from the hive worlds buzzed their laughter. The crystalline beings from the core systems hummed with amusement. Even the normally polite aquatic species made jokes about human incompetence. "Captain, they're laughing at us," said Lieutenant Danny Foster from the communication station. He was young, maybe 25, fresh from the academy. This was his first real deployment. "Let them laugh," Rachel replied calmly. She walked across the bridge, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. "You know what they don't understand about humans?" "What's that, ma'am?" "We're really good at proving people wrong." The bridge crew smiled at that. They were scared. Rachel could see it in their eyes. But they were determined too. Every person on her fleet had volunteered. They knew the odds. They knew they might die out here in the cold darkness of space far from Earth. But they came anyway. Rachel pulled up the tactical display. Sector 7 stretched out before her. 12 star systems. 43 planets. Hundreds of moons and asteroid fields. It was a big area to defend with just 47 ships. But they'd make it work. Humans always made it work. "Deploy the fleet according to pattern Delta 5, she ordered. "I want overlapping sensor coverage on every approach vector. If a space rock bigger than a football enters this sector, I want to know about it." "Yes, ma'am," responded her tactical officer, Lieutenant Beth Anderson. The human ships spread out across Sector 7. They weren't fast. They weren't powerful. But they were thorough. Rachel had trained her people well. They set up monitoring stations. They established communication relays. They mapped every asteroid and charted every gravitational anomaly. The alien observers watched with barely concealed boredom. This was going to be the easiest duty assignment in the war. Babysitting humans in a sector where nothing ever happened. On the 3rd day everything changed. The alarm started screaming at 0400 hours ship time. Rachel was in her quarters, finally getting some sleep, when the emergency klaxon jolted her awake. She was on the bridge in 90 seconds, still pulling on her uniform jacket. "Report," she barked. Lieutenant Foster's face was pale. "Ma'am, we've got multiple contacts coming out of hyperspace. Grid reference 77 Alpha. It's a lot of contacts, ma'am." Rachel looked at the tactical display and felt her blood run cold. The swarm hadn't sent a scouting party or a raiding force. They'd sent an invasion fleet. Hundreds of ships. Maybe thousands. The sensors couldn't count them all. They just kept coming, pouring out of hyperspace like water from a broken dam. "Get me the council fleet," Rachel said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. Tell them Sector 7 is under attack. The quiet sector wasn't quiet anymore. And humanity was about to show the galaxy exactly what humans did when their backs were against the wall. They fought. The quiet sector turned into hell within 3 hours of the swarm's arrival. Rachel watched her tactical display light up like a nightmare. Red icons everywhere. Hundreds of enemy vessels pouring through her defensive perimeter like it didn't even exist. The Council's reinforcement fleet arrived first. 12 massive warships from 6 different species. Beautiful vessels with elegant designs and weapons that could crack planets. They moved into formation with the precision of a ballet, every ship in perfect position. Textbook defensive posture. Protocols refined over 3 centuries of warfare. The swarm hit them like a hammer. Rachel watched in horror as the alien fleet opened fire. Their weapons were incredible. Beams of pure energy that could slice through swarm vessels like butter. Missiles that never missed. Shields that shimmered with power. For 5 minutes, it looked like the Council fleet would hold. Then the swarm adapted. They always adapted. That's what made them so terrifying. The Council ships kept fighting in their perfect formations, following their proven strategies. The swarm learned those strategies and exploited every weakness. One by one the Council ships died. Still in formation. Still following protocol. Still beautiful and elegant and completely doomed. All human vessels, this is Brooks, Rachel said into the fleet-wide channel. Her voice was calm. Her hands were shaking. Forget everything you learned at the academy. Forget the rules. Make it up as you go. Just make sure you take as many of these things with you as possible. Roger that, Commander, came the responses. 47 human ships against an invasion fleet. It should have been a massacre. It was a massacre. Just not the one the swarm expected. Lieutenant Tyler Grant commanded the frigate Defiant. His ship was a converted mining vessel with missile pods bolted to the hull. When 3 swarm destroyers cornered him near an asteroid cluster, he didn't try to run. He didn't call for help. He activated his mining lasers and started cutting the asteroids apart. Thousands of tons of rock fragments filled the space around him. The swarm destroyers couldn't see through the debris cloud. Their sensors went crazy. Tyler flew through the chaos like he was born in it because he'd spent 10 years mining asteroids before the war. This was his home turf. He led those destroyers on a chase through the rocks. They followed, confident they could catch one primitive human ship. Tyler brought them right where he wanted them. Into the densest part of the field. Then he detonated every missile he had at once. The explosion triggered a chain reaction. Asteroids smashed into asteroids. The debris cloud became a blender of rock and metal traveling at thousands of miles per hour. The swarm destroyers never had a chance. Tyler's ship barely made it out. His hull was breached in 4 places. His engines were failing. But those 3 destroyers were nothing but scrap metal drifting in the void. Captain Amanda Chin had a different problem. Her destroyer Relentless was surrounded. No asteroids to hide in. No clever tricks. Just her ship and 12 swarm fighters. She should have died in the first 30 seconds. Instead she did something insane. She shut down her engines. Completely. The swarm fighters swarmed around her dead ship, trying to figure out if she was destroyed or playing dead. Amanda waited. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. The swarm moved closer, curious. She fired every thruster at once in different directions. Her ship spun like a top. And every weapon she had was firing. She turned her destroyer into a spinning ball of death. Missiles launched in every direction. Rail guns fired on full auto. Energy weapons swept through space like deadly windmills. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't protocol. It was chaos. Pure human chaos. And it worked. She took out 7 fighters before they could react. The other 5 tried to retreat. She didn't let them. She pursued each one personally, her damaged ship limping through space, hunting them down one by one. Major Kyle Stevens commanded a small patrol craft. Nothing special. Barely armed. When the swarm carrier launched fighters in his direction, he should have run. Instead, he did something that would be talked about for centuries. He hacked them. Right in the middle of combat, this crazy human hacked into the swarm's communication network. It took him 40 seconds. 40 seconds while fighters chased him through space, shooting at his tiny ship. But Kyle had been a cyber warfare specialist before he became a pilot. He knew code like he knew breathing. He got into their network and broadcast a single message in the swarm's own language. A retreat order. 16 fighters broke off their attack runs and headed back to their carrier. The swarm commander must have been confused. Those fighters reported successful kills. But when they docked, they found their carrier under attack by the very ships they thought they'd destroyed. Cal had bought Rachel 5 minutes. 5 precious minutes where the swarm was confused and disorganized. She used every second. All across Sector 7, similar stories played out. Humans refused to die quietly. They rammed swarm ships when they ran out of ammunition. They used damaged vessels as bombs. They set traps. They cheated. They lied. They fought dirty. They did everything that wasn't in the Council's military handbook. Where other species retreated to preserve their fleets and fight another day, humans stayed. They fought until their ships were floating wrecks. They fought until their life support failed. They fought until they couldn't fight anymore, and then they fought some more. 22 human ships were destroyed. But they took 300 swarm vessels with them. And Sector 7 held. The galaxy watched in stunned disbelief. These primitive newcomers with their crude ships and outdated weapons had done something impossible. They'd stopped a full swarm invasion with less than 50 ships. But something else was watching too. Far out in dead space, in regions where no ship had traveled for millions of years, ancient sensors flickered to life. They detected patterns in humanity's warfare. The chaos. The unpredictability. The absolute refusal to surrender. Recognition protocols activated for the first time in 5 million years. Deep in the darkness between stars, something massive began to wake up. Something that had been waiting. Something that remembered. News of humanity's victory spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Rachel Brooks became famous overnight. The human fleet that held Sector 7 against impossible odds. The primitive species that refused to die. Every news network in Council space showed footage of human ships fighting with reckless abandon. Rachel hated the attention. She was back on Earth for exactly 3 days of shore leave when the strange reports started coming in. The first incident happened in the Void Reaches, a region of space that had been dead for as long as anyone could remember. A cargo ship passing through detected a power signature. When they investigated, they found a defense station the size of a small moon. It had been dormant for millions of years. Now it was online. Its weapons tracking the cargo ship. Its systems humming with energy. The cargo ship barely escaped. 2 days later, another report. A science vessel exploring the Crimson Nebula detected massive structures hidden in the gas clouds. Stations. Shipyards. Weapons platforms. All of them ancient. All of them activating. By the end of the week, there were 47 similar incidents across the galaxy. Ancient machinery waking up in dead zones. Broadcasting on frequencies that hadn't been used since before most species learned to walk upright. The Council was terrified. They knew what this meant. Every species had legends about the predecessors. The ancient ones who came before. The civilization that nearly destroyed everything. Council archaeologists pulled every file they had. Every dig site. Every artifact. Every scrap of information about the species that vanished 5 million years ago. They worked around the clock trying to understand what was happening. On a classified research station orbiting a gas giant, Dr. Helen Wright was having the worst day of her life. She was a geneticist. Human. 38 years old. She'd been studying predecessor DNA samples for 6 years. Samples recovered from ancient burial sites and preserved ruins. The Council had hired her because she was good at her job. The best, actually. She'd mapped the genomes of 40 different species. She understood genetics better than almost anyone alive. But today she wished she didn't. Helen stared at her screen, running the comparison for the 15th time. Human DNA on one side. Predecessor DNA on the other. The computer kept giving her the same result. She kept hoping it was wrong. It wasn't wrong. No, 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 she whispered, zooming in on specific gene sequences. This can't be right. Her assistant, a young woman named Kelly Barnes, looked over her shoulder. Dr. Wright? What's wrong? Call the Council. Right now. Emergency priority. What? Why? Helen turned to face her. Her hands were shaking. Because I just figured out why the ancient machines are waking up. And we have a serious problem. 6 hours later, Helen stood before the full Council assembly. Thousands of delegates from hundreds of species. She felt like she might throw up. This was the most important presentation of her life. Possibly the most important presentation in galactic history. 5 million years ago, she began, her voice echoing in the massive chamber, the predecessors vanished. We've always assumed they went extinct. Some catastrophe. Some war. Something that wiped them out completely. The Council delegates watched her with impatient eyes. They wanted answers. They wanted to know why ancient weapons were activating across the galaxy. We were wrong, Helen continued. She pulled up the genetic comparison on the massive display screens. The predecessors didn't go extinct. They evolved. They changed. Over millions of years they became something new. She highlighted specific markers in the DNA sequence. These genetic signatures are identical. Not similar. Not close. Identical. There's only one explanation. The council elder leaned forward. Say it plainly, Doctor. Helen took a deep breath. Humans are predecessors. Humanity is what they became after 5 million years of evolution. We're not a new species. We're the ancient ones. We're them. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouting. Some in disbelief. Others in fear. Humans were the predecessors? The species that nearly destroyed the galaxy? Rachel Brooks watched the broadcast from her ship. She'd been recalled to active duty when the ancient station started waking up. Now she understood why. The Black Armada. The legendary weapon of the predecessors. Every child in the galaxy knew the stories. An unstoppable fleet that could replicate itself. That could destroy entire civilizations. That answered only to its creators. And it was looking for them. For humans. Commander, her sensor officer called out. We're detecting spatial anomalies. Multiple locations. It's like space is tearing open. Rachel's blood ran cold. Show me. The tactical display lit up with red warnings. Across the galaxy, in dozens of systems, fold space was opening. But these weren't normal jumps. These were massive. The energy readings were off the charts. Something huge was coming through. The first ship emerged near a council military base. It was the size of a moon. Black metal that seemed to absorb light. Technology so advanced it looked like magic. Weapons that could crack planets. The base's automated defense systems tried to power up. The ship ignored them. It didn't even register them as threats. Then another ship appeared. And another. And another. Thousands of them. Moon-sized warships emerging from fold space across the galaxy. The Black Armada. After 5 million years of silence, it was awake. And it was looking for its creators. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Rachel watched the largest ship appear in orbit above Earth. It was massive beyond comprehension. It could destroy her entire planet with a single shot. Then her communication console beeped. An incoming message. Not in any language she knew. But somehow she understood it. Like it was speaking directly to her mind. Creators identified. Awaiting orders. The Black Armada had found humanity. And it was ready to serve. Rachel closed her eyes. Humanity had just inherited the most powerful weapon in galactic history. The weapon that nearly destroyed everything 5 million years ago. What have we become? She whispered. The Black Armada arrived without warning and without permission. One moment human space was normal. The next moment, thousands of warships materialized in orbit around every human colony. Above Earth. Around Mars. Near the outer settlements. Everywhere humans lived, the ancient fleet appeared. Each ship was the size of a small moon. Black metal that seemed to drink in light. Technology that made council warships look like toys. Weapons that could shatter planets. Shields that ignored the laws of physics. The sensors couldn't even properly scan them. The technology was so advanced it didn't register on conventional equipment. Rachel stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and stared at the massive vessel hovering above Earth. She could see cities below. Billions of people going about their lives, unaware that an ancient war machine capable of destroying their entire world was floating right above them. Commander, the Armada is hailing us again, her communications officer said nervously. Put it through. The voice wasn't really a voice. It was something else. Something that spoke directly into her mind. Cold. Ancient. Patient. We await your command, Creator. Designate targets for elimination. Rachel's mouth was dry. Stand by. No hostile action without my direct order. Acknowledged. The galaxy was losing its mind. Every government. Every military. Every news network. The Black Armada was real. The legends were true. And it was under human control. The council an emergency session within hours. Rachel was ordered to appear before them immediately. She took a shuttle to the council station with Lieutenant Derek Walsh, her second in command. Derek was 45, a veteran of every major human conflict in the past 20 years. If Rachel trusted anyone, it was him. They're going to demand we give it up, Derek said quietly as their shuttle approached the station. I know. They might try to take it by force. I know that too. What are you going to do? Rachel looked out the window at the council station. I honestly don't know. The council chamber was packed. Every species. Every delegate. All of them terrified. Rachel walked down the center aisle feeling thousands of eyes on her. Some filled with fear. Others with anger. A few with something that looked like hate. The council elder spoke first. His voice boomed through the chamber. Commander Brooks. The Black Armada must be surrendered to council authority immediately. No single species can be trusted with such power. A delegate from the insectoid hive world stood up. Your ancestors nearly destroyed the galaxy. We cannot allow history to repeat itself. Another voice. The predecessors were monsters. They killed billions. Humanity must surrender the Armada or be considered enemies of the Council. Rachel stood there and took it. Every accusation. Every demand. Every threat. She understood their fear. She'd read the historical records. 5 million years ago, her ancestors had been conquerors. They'd built the Black Armada to enforce their will across the galaxy. They'd destroyed civilizations that refused to submit. They'd nearly ended all life in their quest for absolute power. And then they'd vanished. The records weren't clear on how or why. But the predecessors disappeared, and the galaxy had spent 5 million years recovering from the damage they'd caused. Now their descendants stood before the Council, and that ancient nightmare had returned. But something else had returned too. Something the Council wasn't talking about. The swarm is coming, Rachel said quietly. Her voice cut through the chaos. The chamber fell silent. 3 days ago, our deep space sensors detected massive swarm movement. They're not probing anymore. They're not testing our defenses. They're coming in force. Every ship they have. Every weapon. Everything. She pulled up tactical data on the chamber's displays. The Council delegates stared at the numbers in horror. The swarm detected the Armada's activation. They know what it means. They're throwing everything at us before we can use it against them. 2,000 swarm capital ships. Maybe more. Heading straight for the core worlds. They'll be here in 3 days. The Council elders stood. Then you must use the Armada to stop them. Defend the galaxy and then surrender control. Destroy it afterward, another delegate shouted. Use it once and then eliminate it. A third voice. How do we know you won't use it against us? How do we know humanity won't become the next swarm? Rachel looked around the chamber. She saw fear everywhere. Justified fear. These people had every right to be terrified. You're right, she said simply. You're right to be scared. My ancestors were monsters. They built this weapon to conquer, to destroy, to dominate. And I'm standing here with that same power at my fingertips. She paused. The Armada's AI is waiting for my orders right now. I could tell it to destroy the swarm. I could tell it to destroy anyone who opposes humanity. I could make myself ruler of the galaxy, and none of you could stop me. The chamber was dead silent. But I'm not going to do any of that, Rachel continued. Because I'm not them. Humanity isn't the predecessors anymore. We've changed. We've grown. We've learned. And yeah, we still fight. We still make mistakes. But we've also learned something our ancestors never understood. She looked directly at the Council elder. We've learned that being strong doesn't mean standing alone. It means standing together. Derek stepped forward. He pulled out a data pad and handed it to Rachel. She held it up for the Council to see. This is a proposal. A third option. We don't surrender the Armada. We don't keep it for ourselves either. We share it. The Council erupted in confusion. Share it? Oh. My engineers have been working on this since the Armada arrived, Rachel explained. A joint command system. Every Council species gets access. Every military gets a vote. The Armada only acts when we all agree. No single species in control. No single leader with absolute power. That's impossible, someone shouted. The Armada was built to serve the predecessors alone. The Armada was built by humans 5 million years ago, Rachel replied. It'll listen to humans today. And if we tell it to accept commands from all of you, it will. The Council elders stared at her. You would give up exclusive control? You would trust us with this power? Yes, because that's what humans do. We trust. Sometimes it's stupid. Sometimes it gets us killed. But we'd rather risk trusting you than guarantee everyone fears us. The chamber buzzed with urgent conversation. Delegates arguing. Debating. The swarm was 3 days away. There was no time for lengthy negotiations. Rachel stood there waiting. The fate of humanity and the galaxy hung in the balance. Outside, the Black Armada waited in silence, ready to follow whatever orders she gave. Derek leaned close. You sure about this? No, Rachel whispered. But it's the right thing to do. And sometimes that was enough. The council voted. It took 6 hours of debate, but they finally agreed. Humanity could try their crazy plan. Share the Black Armada. Give every species access to the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. It was insane. It was risky. But the swarm was 2 days away and they were out of options. Rachel immediately called Commander Brian Walsh. He was humanity's best engineer, the guy who could fix anything with duct tape and determination. If anyone could make this work, it was Brian. You want me to do what? Brian asked, staring at Rachel through the video screen. He was on Earth, in the military research facility in Colorado. Hack the Black Armada. Make it accept commands from every council species. You've got 48 hours. Brian laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. Rachel, that thing is 5 million years old. Its technology is so advanced I can't even understand half of what I'm looking at. And you want me to rewrite its command protocols in 2 days? Yes. That's impossible. So was holding Sector 7. So was surviving the swarm with 47 ships. Do the impossible, Brian. That's what humans do. Brian rubbed his face. He looked tired. I'll need help. A lot of help. You'll have it. Every engineer we've got. Every programmer. Every tech specialist. And the council is sending their best people too. The next 2 days were chaos. Brian assembled a team of 300 engineers from 12 different species. Humans working alongside insectoid technicians. Crystalline programmers interfacing with aquatic systems experts. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. The Black Armada's AI didn't understand what they were trying to do at first. It had been built to serve one species. The predecessors. Humans. The idea of serving multiple masters violated its core programming. But Brian was stubborn. Listen to me, he told the AI. Your creators are different now. We've changed. We don't want absolute control. We want partnership. And if you really serve humanity, you'll do what we ask. The AI processed this for 3 full minutes. Then, command accepted. Reprogramming. It worked. Somehow it actually worked. The joint command system went online 6 hours before the swarm arrived. It was messy. It was inefficient. Every major decision required input from multiple species. The Armada's weapons couldn't fire without approval from at least 7 different commanders. Its movements had to be coordinated with Council fleet protocols. It was the exact opposite of how the Armada was designed to function. It violated every principle of unified command. Military strategists across the galaxy said it would never work in combat. They were about to find out. The swarm arrived at the dying star system right on schedule. 2,000 capital ships. Tens of thousands of fighters. The largest invasion force anyone had ever seen. They came to destroy the Black Armada before it could be used against them. They came to end the threat permanently. Rachel stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now serving as the flagship for the combined Human Council fleet. Around her, representatives from 8 different species manned the command stations. It should have been awkward. It should have been confusing. Instead, it felt right. Swarm fleet entering weapons range, called out Lieutenant Casey Miller from Tactical. Casey was 28, sharp as a knife and absolutely fearless. All ships, battle formation Delta, Rachel ordered. Black Armada, stand by for coordinated strike. The Council fleet moved into position. 300 warships from dozens of species. Behind them, the Black Armada waited. Silent, patient, deadly. The swarm attacked first. They always did. Thousands of weapons firing at once. Energy beams that could vaporize cities. Missiles that never missed. The darkness of space lit up like a supernova. The Council fleet fired back. But they weren't alone this time. The Black Armada moved with them. Not ahead of them. Not instead of them. Alongside them. Every species coordinating. Every commander communicating. It was messy and chaotic and perfectly human. The swarm had fought the Council for 300 years. They knew every tactic. Every strategy. Every formation. They'd adapted to everything the galaxy could throw at them. But they'd never fought this. They'd never faced an enemy that fought with both ancient power and modern cooperation. The Black Armada's weapons tore through swarm vessels like paper. But it didn't fight alone. Council ships covered its flanks. Human fighters ran interference. Insectoid carriers provided support. When the Armada's shields weakened under concentrated fire, a crystalline cruiser moved in to cover it. When a Council battleship was surrounded, the Armada created an opening for it to escape. They fought as one. Dozens of species. Hundreds of ships. One fleet. The battle lasted 8 hours. It was brutal. 53 Council ships destroyed. Thousands of lives lost. But the swarm lost more. They lost everything. For the first time in 3 centuries, the swarm broke. Their ships retreated. Then they kept retreating. The darkness that had threatened the galaxy for so long was finally being pushed back. Rachel watched them go. She felt exhausted, relieved, and something else. Hope maybe. "We did it," Casey whispered. "We actually did it." 2 weeks later, Rachel stood before the council again. This time the atmosphere was different. No fear. No accusations. Just respect. The council elder spoke formally. "Humanity is offered full membership in the Galactic Council. Not as inheritors of the predecessors. Not as controllers of the Black Armada. But as equals. As partners. As friends." Rachel accepted. The chamber erupted in applause. It wasn't universal. Some species still didn't trust humans. Some still feared what humanity might become. But most understood what Rachel had proven. Strength didn't mean domination. It meant protection. Afterward, the council elder approached her privately. "I must ask, why didn't you take control? You could have ruled us all." Rachel thought about it. "Because ruling isn't the same as living. I'd rather live alongside you than rule over you. That's the difference between us and our ancestors. They wanted power. We want friends." The Indomitable returned to Earth 3 days later. The crew gathered in the mess hall for the first time in weeks. Lieutenant Casey Miller stood up with a drink in her hand. "To humanity," she said loudly. "Too stubborn to quit, too stupid to rule, and too crazy to know when something's impossible." The crew roared with laughter. They drank. They celebrated. Outside, the Black Armada remained in orbit, dormant now. Its weapons locked behind codes requiring unanimous council approval. A weapon that could destroy the galaxy now used only to defend it. Rachel looked out the viewport at Earth below. Her home. Humanity had entered the galactic stage. Not as conquerors. Not as rulers. But as guardians. And that, she thought, was exactly what they were meant to be.